Ever imagine, like, working surrounded by these giant furnaces? The heat's got to be intense, right? Plus all that noise, the machinery, and maybe a few smells you wouldn't expect. That's the daily grind for incinerator operators. And let me tell you, it's way more complex than just chucking trash into a fire. Luckily, RoleCatcher's got our backs today, giving us the inside scoop on this essential job.
Yeah, RoleCatcher really digs deep. It's funny, when most people think about trash, like getting rid of it, incineration isn't the first thing that comes to mind, but with landfills overflowing and, everyone worried about the environment these days, it's becoming crazy important.
So let's break it down. What does an incinerator operator actually DO all day? It can't be as simple as just, fire and forget.
Definitely not. RoleCatcher makes it clear this is a high-tech job. We're talking running and maintaining these intricate industrial systems, monitoring temperatures, tweaking airflow, fixing any hiccups that pop up, all while making sure they're following super strict safety rules and environmental regulations.
Sounds intense. And speaking of intensity, RoleCatcher says the job market for incinerator operators is supposed to boom by like 6% in the next 10 years.
Faster than
Average, right. That tells you something about how vital this whole thing's becoming.
Totally. And think about it. Landfills are bursting. Everyone wants greener solutions.
Hmm.
It just makes sense that this job's in such high demand.
So job security is probably not something you got to stress about in this line of work, huh? But what about the actual work itself? RoleCatcher paints a pretty vivid picture of a typical day. It's not for the easily grossed out, that's for sure. Constant monitoring, precise adjustments, tons of record keeping. They even talk about cleaning the equipment, not exactly a day at the spa.
Yeah, not your typical office gig. RoleCatcher doesn't try to sugarcoat things either, which I appreciate. The heat alone and the noise, not to mention the whole hazardous materials situation. It takes a special kind of person to thrive in that environment.
For real. And to drive that point home, they've got this awesome story from a senior incinerator operator, been doing it for years. And he's adamant that, like, leadership skills and data analysis, that stuff's crucial. It's not just the machines, it's the people and the bigger picture, too.
Right. What I find fascinating is how it shows how much the job's evolving. You got to be tech savvy, a problem solver, even a people person to really kill it in this field.
And here's where RoleCatcher throws a curveball. You might think incinerator operator, dead end job, right?
Yeah.
But they lay out all these paths for moving up, getting ahead.
Yeah, it's not just a straight line, which is cool. You can end up supervising others, specialize in something like hazardous waste, or even jump to a whole different but related field like environmental compliance, right?
They even talk about building a portfolio. Imagine that, showing off your projects on waste management or like safety protocols you helped implement. Gotta love that go-getter attitude.
Totally. Thinking beyond just the flames, right? You're a valuable asset, and that's only going to become more true as time goes on. This field's only getting bigger.
Okay, so we've covered the day-to-day, the career stuff.
Yeah.
But what about the nitty-gritty pros and cons? The good, the bad, and the ugly, as they say. On the plus side, RoleCapture says the pay's good, job security's there, and hey, maybe you rack up some overtime hours, right?
Right. But they're honest about the downsides, too. Like we said, hazardous materials, the work environment itself. And yeah, there can be health risks down the line. It's a trade-off for sure.
Makes you wonder, right? This job's essential, clearly, but it's tough. Should the pay be even better? More benefits, maybe, to attract the best people? It's a conversation worth having, don't you think?
Definitely. I mean, it makes you think about how we value these jobs that honestly most people don't even realize are so vital. It's not just about the money, but it's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Recognizing how important these folks are, making sure they're taken care of, that's huge.
It really makes you think about all the people out there doing these, like, crucial jobs that nobody really thinks about. But hey, speaking of things changing, RoleCatcher dives into how tech is shaking up the world of incineration, and it's not just, fancier furnaces, right?
Oh, absolutely not. This work is really cool, actually. RoleCatcher talks about this surge in automation, robotics, taking over some of the heavy lifting. Imagine systems that fine-tune the whole incineration process, getting rid of as much waste as possible, making it super efficient. A far cry from the old image of a guy with a shovel, right?
Right. So the job's getting even more technical, I'm guessing. What's RoleCatcher's advice for someone who wants to, like, stay ahead of the game?
They're all about continuous learning, which makes sense, right? Industry magazines, those big conferences, training courses, anything that keeps you in the loop on the latest and greatest tech. They even list some organizations that are like pioneers in incineration technology. Super helpful.
Sounds like they've got you covered. But there's this one thing that really caught my eye. RoleCatcher mentions how these advancements could lead to cleaner energy. Almost sounds too good to be true, you know, burning trash to power our homes.
It does sound futuristic, but it's closer than you think. They point to these things called waste energy plants, or WTE. They're designed to take that heat from the incineration process and turn it into electricity.
So instead of just like letting all that heat disappear, they capture it and put it to good use. That's amazing. But they don't stop there. RoleCatcher also talks about something called resource recovery.
Mm-hmm.
What's that all about?
So it's this idea that we can actually get valuable stuff from waste. Think like extracting metals from what's left after incineration or using the ash for building materials. RoleCatcher gives some really wild examples of how it's already being done.
Wow, so the people dealing with our trash could actually be leading the way to a greener future. That's pretty cool. But let's switch gears for a second, talk about climbing that career ladder. You mentioned RoleCatcher outlines the different stages. Where does someone even begin in this field?
Well, like most jobs, you'd start at the entry level.
Yeah.
Think of it as your boot camp. You're shadowing the pros, learning the ropes, really getting a feel for the day-to-day.
I'm guessing that involves a lot of like hands-on stuff, monitoring equipment, making sure everyone's following safety rules, maybe even some basic maintenance or troubleshooting.
Exactly. RoleCatcher gives an example of what a typical entry-level profile might look like. Attention to detail, strong work ethic. Being really safety conscious is huge, obviously. They even say that extra education in a related field can give you a leg up, which makes sense.
Yeah, building a solid foundation. So you've put in your time at the entry level, proven yourself. What's the next step up?
You'd be looking at a junior incinerator operator position. More responsibility at this stage, for sure. RoleCatcher says you got to be able to handle the incineration machines on your own, troubleshoot tougher problems, and keep really detailed records, all that good stuff.
So you're really starting to hone those technical skills, understanding the whole process inside and out. But what about leadership? Managing people, does that come into play at this level?
Not so much at this point. RoleCatcher says that kicks in more when you reach senior incinerator operator. That's where you step into more of a leadership role, overseeing the junior operators, making sure everyone's following the rules, maybe even helping to develop those safety protocols.
So it's not just about the machines anymore, it's about managing people and the bigger picture. Makes sense for someone who wants to climb the ladder. What does RoleCatcher's ideal senior incinerator operator look like?
Well, experience is key, of course, but they also highlight things like communication, teamwork, being a problem solver. You're the go-to person, so you got to stay calm under pressure, make good calls, and lead by example.
Sounds like a challenging but rewarding role. But RoleCatcher doesn't stop there, do they? They talk about even higher levels you can reach in this field. What are we talking about for someone who wants to, like, rule the incineration world?
Oh yeah, they definitely don't stop there. They've got lead incinerator operator, even supervisor or manager of incinerator operations. These are the folks, like shaping how we deal with waste in the future. Big picture stuff.
Wow, so you really can climb the ranks in this field. What's different about those top jobs? What would you even be doing all day?
Okay, so say you're a lead incinerator operator. You're not just overseeing things day to day, you're running the show for a whole team of operators, developing training, making sure everyone's up to date on regulations, all the procedures. You might even be doing performance reviews, giving feedback, all that.
That's a lot of responsibility, but also a chance to really make a difference, right? Shaping the next generation, keeping the whole facility running smoothly. What about that top spot, though? Supervisor or manager? That's got to be next level stuff.
It is. Think about it. You're overseeing everything, budgeting, making sure you're following all the rules, coming up with new ways to make things better, more efficient. You're basically the captain steering the ship,
Right.
making sure everything runs smoothly and sustainably.
No pressure. Right. But seriously, that's amazing how far you can go in this field. Starting from the bottom, learning the ropes, and then bam, you're calling the shots.
It shows you how complex this whole waste management thing really is,
Yeah.
and how important these folks are. RoleCatcher does a great job of showing that, how much skill and dedication it takes to succeed in this line of work. People don't always realize it.
And let's not forget, they could be leading the charge to a greener future, right? All that stuff we talked about, waste to energy, resource recovery.
Yeah.
Incinerator operators are on the front lines of all that.
Totally. They're the ones who see what works, what doesn't. Their experience is going to be so valuable as we figure out how to create a more circular economy where trash isn't trash, it's just another resource.
I love that. The people dealing with our garbage, leading the way to a brighter future. Who knew? Well, that pretty much wraps up our deep dive into the world of incinerator operators. Big thanks to RoleCatcher for giving us so much awesome info on this job. It's essential, but most people don't know the first thing about it.
Totally agree. It's been fun exploring all this with you. Not your typical dinner table conversation, but hey, that's what we're here for, right?
You got that right. So what do you think out there, listeners? Does a career in incineration spark your interest? Could you handle the heat, literally, and maybe a few unexpected smells along the way? Something to think about. Until next time, stay curious, everybody.